What's going on, guys? It's Nick here, back in the video. Today we're going to go over this year's rookie wide receiver class, both from a dynasty and a redraft perspective. Not going to go over 100% of the class in today's video, but I'm going to touch on the ones that I think are the most important. So let's start things off with the top three in both redraft and in dynasty. I have the top three in order as Marvin Harrison Jr., Malik Neighbors, and then Rome Odunze. Harrison Jr. went 4th overall to the Cardinals. Neighbors goes 6th overall to the Giants, 9th overall to the Bears for Odunze. Now, when you hear about this rookie class and you hear that it is, we're not going to say a generational class, but we're going to say a very good class, one of the better classes we've seen in a long time. From my perspective, the reason people are saying that is because of the top three. All of the top three would have been the wide receiver 1 overall, whether you want to talk NFL, like being drafted number 1 overall, talk about dynasty, redraft, no matter how you want to frame best wide receiver, all of the top three would have been the best wide receiver in either of the last two draft classes. All are going to produce right in week 1. All are going to be featured weapons for their offense. Harrison Jr. definitely gets the best landing spot among the three. Here, the Cardinals were in need. That was the biggest need on their team was we need an alpha wide receiver. They needed help last season at wide receiver, and then they lost Marquise Brown to free agency. And so before drafting Marvin Harrison Jr., their top pass catchers were Trey McBride, Michael Wilson, and Greg Dortch. Now, I actually like all three of those players, but Dortch is still only a slot wide receiver. Wilson is at best a team's wide receiver 2, probably thrives a little bit more as that third option. And then McBride, for as good as he is, he can't do everything in the offense. They kind of asked him to do everything, at least in the passing attack, late last season. So it is just the perfect landing spot for a near perfect prospect. He's going to be a fantasy starter for you right in week 1. The issue is, everyone knows that, right? That's not a secret. It's why we're not going to delve too much longer into him. ADPs, Best Ball Mania just came out on Monday of this week. And so that's the first actual ADPs from a large field contest that we're seeing right now. We don't have ESPN, Yahoo, NFL. We don't have any of those actual ADPs, but early indications are he's going to be a second round pick. Maybe a late second round pick. Maybe in redraft, it's more of like an early third round pick. But the point is, people know he's going to be good, so you're not exactly getting a discount there. Moving down to 2. Neighbors. Landing spot is a bit of a mixed bag. Like on the one hand, you say, okay, lands on the Giants. He's obviously going to be their one, right? You've got Darren Waller retiring. You've got, 16 different wide receiver 3s on that offense. Like they just don't have someone that they're going to throw the football to. They don't have Saquon Barkley anymore. Like he's obviously, by a mile, their wide receiver 1. On the other hand, it's the Giants, and Daniel Jones is still the quarterback. You guys know in fantasy, I do actually like Daniel Jones a decent amount of times because he is so mobile. He's way more mobile than people usually expect. You get a ton of fantasy points for being mobile. But in terms of like NFL quarterbacking, obviously Daniel Jones is not the best, pocket passer, right? And so a bit of a mixed bag. I think it's fair to question the ceiling for cost, right? He's right now going in round 3. If that kind of holds, it is fair to sit there in round 3 and be like, okay, well, but you can say that about a lot of players going in round 3, especially a wide receiver. There are still really good options. And so it's not like you look at him in round 3 and you're like, yep, he's got, 1,200 yard, 10 touchdown ceiling, and no one else does. Everyone does when you look at round 3. So that's going to kind of be, the decision we have to make with that one. But the only worry in his profile as a prospect was an insane amount of his deep targets, or the same amount of his targets, I guess, came on deep slot targets. So he lines up in the slot, runs a deep route. That's great in college, right? Because he's basically just out athleticism-ing, I guess that's the word. He's just so much more athletic than all the people playing him. And it's kind of a cheat code in college getting that slot fade. And so he can do that, and his coach can be like, well, if this is just going to work, if every time we design this play, we gain 30 yards, of course we're going to do it. It doesn't translate amazingly to the NFL. You would prefer to see him win on a little bit more variant of routes. But the point is, that is literally the only thing. And the only thing I'm saying is he was dominant deep downfield, right? So it's like, there's only one part of his profile where we're like, okay, maybe we would have liked to see him win on a few more different routes, but it's really not that big of a deal. You know, he's still hyper athletic, even from an NFL standpoint. Like he was, you know, leaps and bounds more athletic than people in college. That'll come down because the NFL obviously has much better athletes. But the point is, he's still going to be awesome. He's going to be used in all areas of the field as a featured weapon. Like, I don't think you're going to take him in round 3 and be like, wow, that was horrible, right? He put up 600 yards fully healthy. Like, that's just not in his range of outcomes. He's going to have a decent year. The only question would be, do you like the ceiling? Final wide receiver in that like top 3, again, both Dynasty and Redraft have these same rankings, is Rome Odunze. Again, I want to stress all these top 3 would have been the wide receiver 1 in either of the last 2 draft classes. So while Odunze is 3rd here, that does not mean his profile isn't insane, because it is. Matt Harmon, I reference him a ton. He charted him over at receptionperception.com with all green routes. I don't believe that's ever happened. I think he's the first prospect to do that. That basically means Harmon goes in there, he just charts all the routes in the route tree, and if you're at an above average success rate, you get the green, right? Every single route, this kid is good at running. He's also an insane athlete. He can win in all areas of the field. He can create separation. We know that he can. He is a lock to be a fantastic NFL wide receiver. The one thing with him is, I would say I'm more excited about him in Dynasty and Redraft. The ranking is the same again, but I'm more excited long-term because, you know, they're attempting this rebuild paired with Caleb Williams. He's going to have, you know, DJ Moore, Rome Odunze, like both of them are going to be on the field a ton in future years. The problem is in the short term, you've also got Keenan Allen there. And when you've got DJ Moore, Keenan Allen, DeAndre Swift, Cole Kmet, like, you know, some of those players aren't necessarily superstars, but I would say DJ Moore and Keenan Allen are 2 better wide receivers in the NFL. Swift is a pass catching back. Cole Kmet is a pretty decent pass catching tight end. And so you sit there and you're like, okay, you know, it's really tough to push Odunze past like a 20% target share in year 1. That's why in Dynasty, he's the wide receiver 14 overall. Redraft, only the wide receiver 30 right now. So a little bit of difference there, but again, among rookies, it's still that top 3. After the top 3, we get a decent tier breakdown to Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy. Brian Thomas Jr. goes 23rd overall to the Jaguars, 28th overall to the Chiefs for Worthy. Both are pretty good landing spots overall, but neither one of them has the floor and ceiling combo of the top 3. We know the top 3 is going to be great in fantasy, great in real life. These next 2, it's a tier down. We're not necessarily saying that they're locks to produce in fantasy. In redraft leagues, I have both them ranked right now in half PPR scoring as 9th round picks, and then hovering around the wide receiver 30 or so in Dynasty. Brian Thomas Jr. is an elite deep threat. We know Xavier Worthy, although not grading out as an elite deep threat in college, he broke the 40 record at the combine. You have to think that Casey's going to use him deep. They're going to utilize his speed properly. Had he gone to a team with a bad quarterback, with an uncreative head coach, you'd worry a little bit more about that college profile, him not actually being an amazing deep threat, actually being a bad deep threat. But landing with Mahomes, landing with Andy Reid, you're not worried about that at all. They're going to utilize him properly. So we've got 2 speed wide receivers who have very, very high weekly ceilings, but who are unlikely to lead their team in targets. And so that's going to lead to a little bit more volatile production. So you take these 2, you got to know that, yeah, they're probably each going to have games where they have 102 touchdowns, but they're going to mix in a lot more games where the targets aren't really there. I do think it's a pretty decent chance that you're able to start these 2 in the flex spot, maybe in like the second half of the season, like more consistently. Maybe you can open up that way, but like second half of the year, I think that's probably where we're looking at these 2 for consistent flex production. But that's why they're going in round 9, at least. Again, we don't really have ADPs, but at least in my rankings right now, round 9, not like round 5 or 6, where you're expecting that, you know, flex production right away. After these 2, you start to see a little bit of a divergence in redraft versus dynasty leagues. In dynasty leagues, I have Ricky Pearsall next up, followed closely by Keon Coleman. In redraft, I have Coleman as a late 9th round pick, but Pearsall all the way back in the late 14th round. So a very big difference there. And it really comes down to short-term uncertainty right now. We just don't know what San Fran is going to do with Brandon Ayuk, with Deebo Samuel. Right now, you kind of have to just assume, like if you were drafting today, you kind of have to just assume that they're going to be there, right? That's obviously going to hurt Pearsall in year one because those two are going to command a higher target share than he will. And it really just makes him a sleeper pick. Does, Depot, Ayuk, do they get injured at some point in the season? Do they get traded mid-season? Like these things can happen to where if you draft him in the later rounds, either one of those two things happen, he's a fantasy stud, right? And he just dominates his ADP. But if those don't happen, obviously he's not going to be very usable. So you kind of have that there. If Ayuk or Debo were to be traded, he's going to skyrocket. People are going to fall in love with him. People already really, really like the talent. I think everyone's seen the clip of CJ Stroud, being just like crushed that they didn't draft Pearsall. You got a bunch of wide receivers. You don't need another one. But like, there's a lot of very smart people who are just 100% locked in on Pearsall. So if he gets that opportunity, he's going to do well. But that also means everyone in the fantasy community knows that. And so he's going to be on everyone's sleeper list. And again, going to skyrocket in ADP if either one of those two, Ayuk or Debo, gets traded. He would probably leapfrog both Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy, and potentially into that like 5, 6, 7 round. Again, I don't know how exactly everyone's going to react. It is only April, but that's my kind of take there. And he would be the rookie wide receiver 4 in Dynasty. So obviously pay attention to news out of San Fran. As for Coleman, super polarizing player. So it's this weird speed thing with him. Shows up to the combine, runs the 4.61 40. That's terrible, right? That's a really, really bad 40 time for someone that you thought was going to be very athletic, thought, could run 4.5, sub 4.5 in the 4.4s, right? But then they do the gauntlet, which is that one where they kind of run through the middle of the field and they're like catching passes on each side. It kind of just shows like game speed, like kind of how fast you play. He runs the fastest speed in that one. And so you're sitting there like, okay, the combine is already kind of dumb. Like it's not, the best indicator of anything. My model doesn't care all that much about how you do in the combine. It's more like, did you do amazing or did you do terrible? Like in the middle, it doesn't matter at all. But it's just a weird thing where it's like, okay, so you don't have amazing straight line speed, which would have been nice, but your play speed is really fast. So what do we do with that, right? Like which one is it? The thought would be the play speed is the one that matters more, but I don't know. It's a weird debate that's out there right now. My issue is neither one of those. Again, I just don't care that much about combine times. One thing in his profile that screams fade is a ton of his production came on screen passes and on contested catches. And it's fine to be good at contested catches. It's not fine to have a ton of your receptions come on contested catches because it means you're not separating, right? Well, what if half of those you just ran a better route and it didn't need to be contested because you were open by 5 yards? Like that would be the ideal outcome. So I never like to see a lot of your production coming on like a screen pass. You didn't run any route, you just chuck you the ball. And on contested catches, you didn't get open, you just happened to catch the ball over someone. Like maybe you're doing that in college, but in the NFL, when the corners are a lot better, are you still going to be doing that? So I don't love it. The only reason he's going this high is because he lands on Buffalo, right? You've got Curtis Samuel, Shakir, you've got Dalton Kincaid, who's going to probably have 1 million targets. You've got, James Cook catching some balls, but like they need someone to rack up targets. And he was kind of like personally selected by Josh Allen. So we'll see how they mesh. Like obviously they still have to like click and he still have to like run good routes. But that is why he'd be going earlier, is just because the landing spot is so amazing. I'm probably pumping the brakes. My guess is I'll be on the ADP, but who knows? If he goes in like 12th, 13th, 14th round, I'll be in on it. I'm just hoping he doesn't go in like round 7 or 8 because I don't think that's great. Ideally, redraft leagues, you're getting him in that like 9, 10, 11 sort of range. After that, pretty big tier break in redraft leagues. In Dynasty, I think you can make a case for Ladd, for Polk, Leggett, A.D. Mitchell, Troy Franklin, all being in a very similar range, very closely behind the wide receivers we've just mentioned. In redraft leagues, though, you're going to see a pretty big drop after Keon Coleman, and after like that whole range of like Brian Thomas Jr., Worthy, Keon Coleman. That group of 5 I just mentioned, again, Ladd McConkey, A.D. Mitchell, Jalen Polk, Xavier Leggett, and Troy Franklin. Like that group is more sleeper. Like that's a whole group that does have real concerns in year one, and I would only be considering them sleeper picks, not picks where it's like, okay, I can see a world easily where you're a flex option. Everyone mentioned before, easy path to flex production. This group, not as much. Ladd, probably the most exciting, goes 34th overall to the Chargers. Normally that would be like just the dream landing spot, but Chargers are going to run the ball a ton this season. And while they don't have like a true wide receiver one, and maybe Ladd becomes that, Palmer is still a quality wide receiver. I do think they're going to try and get Quentin Johnston going. I have Ladd projected for over a 16% target share, so I think he's going to command a decent amount of targets. It's just because of how run heavy they're going to be, that's not enough. Like, he needs to jump up into like 18, 19, maybe hit 20% to really be someone that's like consistent in fantasy. Tough to project that right out of the gates, and so still just a sleeper pick there. AD Mitchell, I've seen him thrown around a ton this offseason as a great sleeper pick. I don't see it personally. Analytical profile is terrible. His yards per route run is awful. Yards after the catch, forced missed tackles, yard percentage, like anything you look at analytically to be like, how did you produce? And if you just look at straight up production, it's all bad. Like, his analytical profile is terrible. My model doesn't love him. It's basically just the film guys like his route running, which is fine. And I do always lean on people who do that sort of analysis, and people I respect like do like him, right? So it's like he's probably better than the analytical profile shows. I always come back to like, okay, if you're so good at route running, why didn't you do anything in college? Like, if you're that good of a prospect, why is it only showing up on a few routes that you ran that like you're always open, but they just refuse to throw to you? Like, it doesn't make a lot of sense there. Then he lands on the Colts. Obviously Pittman is going to be the one there. Obviously you're going to have JT, you're going to have Anthony Richardson just running the ball a ton. And so you're kind of like the quote unquote, like really fourth option when you think of like the amount of carries Richardson's going to get, plus touches for JT, plus targets for Pittman. You're like fourth at best. And Downs, I like Downs a lot too. So maybe you're fifth in year one. Again, long term, I think AD Mitchell good. I think it's just got to be a sleeper pick in redraft leagues. Polk, probably the second most likely of this grouping behind Ladd to really break out as a rookie, really just given how bad the Patriots wide receiver room is. And it really just comes down to Drake May. Right? Does Drake May come out there, light the world on fire, have a CJ Stroud-like season? Probably not, but could it happen? Yes, and then you'd see Polk really elevate, really be great in fantasy. You've got an unknown, not an unknown, but like an unknown in the NFL. We don't know how May is going to work out. At quarterback, you've got Polk, who, let's be honest, was probably drafted a little bit higher than people expected him to be drafted. That's one where we just got to wait and see. Like right now, the projections have him as, a quality sleeper. Let's see what happens in camp. Let's see how the target share kind of seems to be shaking out. Let's see how Drake May is performing as well. Final two are Leggett and Troy Franklin. I hate Leggett as a prospect. His biggest comp in my model is Jonathan Mingo. Took him 5 years to even reach that comp. So like if he was, drafted a year ago, he'd have like horrific comps. I mean, Jonathan Mingo's a pretty bad comp too, but like it took him 5 years in college to be like, you know what, best case scenario, Jonathan Mingo. Like it's not great. Deontay Johnson is the wide receiver one, obviously, for the Panthers. They are going to run the ball a lot this season. I just don't see it for Leggett. Troy Franklin, though, is someone that I do really, really like. I just wish he was drafted a little bit earlier, went to a little bit of a better landing spot. Like, I love his talent. It's a little concerning. He slipped a little bit further than people were expecting. And then also he's got the same thing with Polk, where it's like when you have that combination, like again, it worked out last year with Stroud and Tank Dell, but it doesn't most of the time work out when you've got a rookie quarterback and a rookie wide receiver. And especially, Stroud went second overall. Bo Nix, it was not the prospect that Stroud was. It's a little bit less likely than I think people are going to think this season, having it happened last year. But you know what? Sean Payton really likes Bo Nix. I think he's probably going to start in week one. He likes him that much, but we'll see. Again, Troy Franklin's another one where it's like, how does Bo Nix look in camp? How is the target share looking in Denver? Because also with Denver, it's like they don't have a true one, but they've got a lot of guys there, like just a lot of bodies in that room. And does it kind of turn out to be kind of like a Mim situation last year where it's like Troy Franklin's just like not getting the playing time he deserves, or he's mixing in, but there's so many guys are coming on and off the field. So we will see on that one, but kind of just a sleeper, really in both Dynasty and Redraft leagues. So that is the top 12 rookie wide receivers this season. Pretty big tier break into everyone else after that top 12. A few that I like taking shots on. So if that top 12 is gone, you're in like an underdog draft and you're like, I need a few more names to throw out there. Jermaine Burton in Cincy, definitely, especially if T. Higgins were to leave. Seems like T's not going to leave right now, but we'll see on that front. Luke McCaffrey on the Commanders. That one kind of comes down to how you think of Jahan Dotson. Like if you think Jahan Dotson's a bust, well, they drafted Luke McCaffrey earlier than people expected. Grades out decently, but also who else are they throwing to? No more Curtis Samuel on the team. If you think Jahan again is a bust, like if Luke could be the wide receiver too, that would be a really good late round sleeper there. And then Malik Washington goes way later than I was hoping for, but great landing spot on the Dolphins. If you can carve out a little bit of target share there, that would be great. I'm not super impressed with anyone else, but if you wanted to take a shot on Malachi Corley, go for it. He got drafted to the Jets. Obviously, if you think Aaron Rodgers is a great year, maybe that's part of it. I don't like him as a prospect, so I personally will not be going there. So that is an overview of this year's wide receiver class. We'll do the exact same thing on Friday with running back, so make sure you're subscribed to the channel so you don't miss out on that. Also, I'm doing a free newsletter this season, so if you want more free content, you can sign up for that in the description box down below. That, my friends, is this one. Hope you all enjoyed. If you did, how about hitting the like button? How about subscribing to the channel if you're new here? Thanks for watching.